In all honesty, my whole life, since I was very young, or since I stretched back so far, from my very first beginning point, that I went all the way back to, I I asked for my tribes, for my people, to go out and to try and find some other civilization, some other tribe. And while they did go out and meet other people, they really didn't find anything other than tribes. All they humans seem to be, I don't know, of the same level everywhere. Um, there were didn't seem to be any more real advanced tribes than my people. I spent my whole life. I spent like from the probably the furthest point, but I don't know. Because at first it really wasn't that big of a deal, and then it was a really big deal, and I forget when that was. Somewhere around 1400s or um, or 1100s or so. I I directed my people or asked my people to look to see if there was any other civilization that went back further than our own. And I told my people, or asked my people to go all over the planet, and they did. That's what all the Crusades were about. They went in search of other peoples, other groups, to see if there's anybody else on the planet. And I don't really know what they said exactly. I think the present day or it got too confusing because I went from place to place to place to place to place, and I don't think there really wasn't anybody else that was more advanced or anything. There were just people that I had worked with that I had kind of like lost contact with and then regained contact with. Like I say, I go all the way back to Brazil to whatever date the oldest thing is in Brazil, and that wasn't even my first. That was like my third spot, or over 1,000 years later after. That's what it's called. At least the record was 1,000 years after I waited. I waited too long, or so I waited like 500 years before I started having them record history or something. So anyway, I sent people. I spent money looking for some civilization, something that was pre-existing, and I even sent people in search of my old monuments, because I had monuments, I had dams carved out of rock that were dams. They dammed up rivers by filling in dirt on one side and then carving rock dams out of the solid rock. And then they would spill, and then they would put water wheels inside the solid rock, and it would run a water wheel from the solid rock. I was rich enough or wealthy enough or powerful enough that I could ask people to carve dams or water wheels out of solid rock. I didn't even have to bother with pouring concrete or anything else like that. I'd just be like, well, pick a valley, carve a thing, and we'll do this. And that's what was done. And then they mined and did other things. Usually I just did it for mining and stuff. So I've been mining for about 10,000 years probably. Um, I never really tasked my people too much. I just was like, you can do this, you can do that. So they just, they did it at their own pace. I never really made them or expected too much of them. So, because I knew what we were doing and I knew the problems at hand and I knew that it was going to be a slow, long process, which was fine. I had plenty of time. So anyway, where was I going with this? Anyway, so it was a big task. It's something I really wanted. I wanted to find an ancient civilization or anything that was before me, and I couldn't find anything, and neither could any of my people. Um, it got a little weird at one point in time, but that was mostly because present day was messing with me, and they caused some weird things to happen in the past, or some weird things to happen. Because anyway, it goes back to who people think I am, and who I really am, and who I really always have been. I know who I am and who I always have been, and so do my people out there, or my people did know. That's just like every tribe may not recognize me as I am now, but they did know me. and I did work with them, and they did make tools and learn to live better through my direction. And a lot's changed since then, but that's because I went off and worked with other groups that knew me or had known me back in the day, and then and I directed them, and we built textiles and all kinds of things, and civilization has become. Anyway, it's complicated, and like I say, it gives me a headache, and and it doesn't even matter that I go so far back, but it's true that I do go so far back. But I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to state it. Anyway, but I've done everything. I've done so many things since then that it's just, it doesn't even matter that I go back that far. I I also did all kinds of other things which made me quite a person. Anyway, it doesn't really matter anymore, like I said. But that's one of the reasons why, to present day, there really isn't anything that's not about me, because everything in this world has, I was so far back that everything that I did is about me, or was about me, or has some effect or action because of what I did, all the things I did. And I played such a huge role in humanity's history that it's, well, it's epic, but hopefully a good epic, because I tried to do the best I could, but I wasn't always exactly the same. Like I say, I go back to and and e, in those days with three verbal communication, where they communicated with me and not each other, and I changed that, and so I was different back then, and when I changed that, I changed, and then when I continued to do things like create schools, I changed again. So I'm almost unrecognizable for who I was because of all the things that changed because of what I did. So, so that's another reason why I can't even rationalize who I was, because everything is different. And and so, like, I could have been an unfeeling creature before, where I'd just be like, kill that person or whatever, and not even feel it. I don't really know. It scares me sometimes when I think about who I could have been. I could have, I mean, I changed society and society changed me in a lot of ways. So I could have been the type of person that would be like, well, kill him. Let's move on. I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of leader that they wanted, and that's the kind of leader I was. Or at least that's what the people wanted. The people wanted a god and someone supreme. And that's what they wanted back then. And I changed how they were, and that changed how I was, and that also changed their opinion of me. Because then they go back and look and see the kind of person I was, and people think things, and it's like, well, that's what they wanted, and that's what they expected of a leader back then. So that's who I was. I did what had to be done. And I don't know. It's hard to rationalize because things were different back then. And so I might have done some monstrous things and not even realize it. I'm scared to actually read about my history. I know I made some mistakes. I know I did some things that humanity probably wouldn't understand now. They didn't even know not to understand it in the past. And so when present day looks at the person I might have been, they wouldn't understand that that was just the way it was back then. The individual didn't matter at all, and it was complicated.